Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Julie Krupa. I'm an attorney for the Department of Procurement Services at the City of Chicago, and on behalf of Jamie Rhee, our Chief Procurement Officer, and Mayor Manuel, I'd like to welcome you. And thank you for attending. Today we're going to discuss procurement fundamentals of doing business with the City of Chicago. We're going to go over some certification and compliance with MB, WB, and DBE goal topics. We're going to talk about some terminology that we use in procurement for the City of Chicago. We're going to talk about the different types of procurement that we do, and we're going to end with some discussion on how to comply with MB, WBE goals. So it's a lot of material to cover, but it's a broad overview of how you do business with the city. We offer a number of other workshops that get into specifics about the topics I'm going to cover, but hopefully I'll leave some time at the end, so if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I can give you my card and also my contact information at the end if you prefer to contact me that way. So diving in, I'm going to start by reading you our mission statement. The Department of Procurement Services is the contracting authority for the procurement of goods and services for the City of Chicago. We pledge to work together as a team and with our customers to guarantee open, fair, and timely process by establishing, communicating, and enforcing superior business practices. Integrity, public trust, and the law are our guiding principles. So speaking of the law, the reason that we procure goods and services the way we do at the city is because there's a number of laws and regulations that control how we are required to purchase goods and services. So some of those laws are the Illinois Municipal Purchasing Act for cities over 500,000 and the Chicago Municipal Code, Chapter 292. If you review either of those, you'll see there's a number of different rules and regulations and requirements that we have to follow when we're purchasing anything for the city. So moving into some procurement terms, DPS uses some terminology that you might not be familiar with if you've never done business with the city or with other government agencies. It's important to become familiar with these terms so that when you're bidding on our projects, you understand what it is that we're doing based on a procurement method, you understand what the documents mean when we refer to them, such as bid package or solicitation, specification. So this is just an overview of some of the common terms. So DPS will provide a checklist for bidders in every bid package. And bidders should review the bid documents and the checklist before submitting a bid. And be sure that you're providing all the requested information so that your bid is complete. And when we say bid package, we mean the package that contains all of the information about what it is that we're purchasing. So it'll describe the good or service or equipment that we need. It'll describe what you need to complete. It'll describe when it's due, where it's due. All of that information is in the bid package. By law, procurements are generally conducted through competitive procurement processes. Competition encourages best prices and the best solutions for the city. Some other terms that are common, many of you have seen contracts before. They are a written agreement between the city and a vendor for the provision of goods or services to the city by that vendor. There's a number of different forms of contracts that we use depending on what it is that we're buying. There are professional services, template contracts, there are contracts for work services, construction services, and commodities. So there's many different types of contracts. Bid package, as I mentioned, is a set of documents that the city issues to solicit bids for goods or services. Addendum it's a written document that we issue when we are making a change to the requirements in an invitation to bid, requests for qualifications, or requests for proposals. So an addendum will be issued by DPS to anyone who is interested in bidding on that particular project, and it's the way that we communicate any changes. Because we use competitive procurement methods and public procurement methods, we need to make sure that anyone interested in bidding has equal access to all the information so that they can bid on the project is well informed as other bidders. So that's why we use addendum, so that everyone has the opportunity to review any changes that we might make. Amendments or modifications are changes to the actual contract. So if you're awarded a contract by the city and then we need to make changes to that contract, we'll do that through the form of an amendment or modification. If you work in the construction industry, this is commonly also referred to as change order. Some other terms so bids. The majority of our contracts are awarded through competitive bidding. That's pursuant to state law. Most procurements are awarded to the lowest bidder. So the lowest responsive and responsible bidder will be awarded the contract. By responsive, we mean a bidder who meets all of the requirements that we need. So You're giving us whatever the good or service is that we've asked for. You meet any of the requirements we have in the document. So for example, if we need a vendor that has 5 years experience, you have 5 years experience. If we need a vendor who has certain licenses, you have those licenses. That's how you become responsive. And responsible means that you're actually capable of performing for the city. So you actually have the financial wherewithal, you have the staff, you have the ability to perform for the city. Some other terms, requests for proposals or RFPs. That is one of the methods of competitive procurement that we use, typically for soliciting proposals to implement a new project requiring professional services. An example of that is IT contracts, where we might need a custom solution, whereas price of an off-the-shelf system is not exactly what the city needs. There might be other factors that are involved that are important to the city, so we'll use an RFP. In that case, price is one of the factors, but it's not the controlling factor. Request for qualifications is a different form of competitive procurement. It's used to solicit qualifications, as the name implies, for vendors who possess a high degree of technical expertise and knowledge in specific disciplines. RFQs typically lead to master consulting agreements, and for federally funded architectural engineering contracts, RFQs are the required procurement method, and price is not considered on those projects until after the most qualified vendor is selected. And I'll get into some more details about those procurement methods later on. So now I'm going to move into discussing some of the MBE, WBE, and DBE participation rules. Historically, some firms and individuals have been excluded from business opportunities within the city. So these programs are city and federal programs that are designed to create opportunities for firms that have faced these exclusions. So Section 292-420 sets forth the city's minority-owned and women-owned business enterprise program. This is for all contracts other than construction. 292-650 sets forth the MBE and WBE procurement program for construction contracts. And 49 CFR Part 26 sets forth the rules for participation for DBEs or disadvantaged business enterprises on federally funded programs. So the only time you'll see DBE is on federally funded projects. MBE and WBE will apply otherwise for city-funded projects. And MBE and WBE goals can be met through direct participation, such as forming a joint venture, self-performing if you're certified as an MBE WBE, or using an MBE WBE as a subcontractor on your contract. You have to be certified by the city or Cook County through our reciprocity agreement with Cook County, but those are the only certifications we accept. In order to receive credit for participation, the firm also has to perform a commercially useful function. And when we say commercially useful function, we mean that the certified firm actually has to perform a distinct element of the work under the contract. So they actually have to perform and manage and supervise the work that they are contracted to do, whether individually or through a joint venture. But only the work that is a commercially useful function is counted towards the MBE and WBE goals. Contractors are not allowed to reduce their participation commitments for WBEs and MBEs during the performance of the contract, after substantial completion, or at the time the contract closeout, unless the contractor has requested in writing to the CPO that the goals are reduced or waived. Otherwise, you have to meet the goals that you've committed to under the contract. And a contractor seeking a waiver or reduction has to demonstrate to the CPO that they have made good faith efforts to try to meet its MBE and WBE goals. So by that we mean you have to demonstrate that you actually went out and you tried to find firms who are capable of performing the portion of the work that you want to subcontract out that are certified as MBE or WBEs. It's not enough just to say, oh, I tried, I couldn't find some. You have to show us that you made the effort. One of the programs that DPS offers is a target market program. Under 292-460 of the Municipal Code of Chicago, this calls for procurements that only MBEs and WBEs have the right to bid on. So you have to be certified as an MBE or WBE to participate through these programs. This is only for non-construction contracts, so you will never see a construction contract bid as a target market procurement. Certification, there are more than just MBEs and WBEs that are certified by the city. although those are probably our most commonly known. We also recently adopted a BEPD, or Business Enterprise Owned and Operated by People with Disabilities. And we have the DBE program, which is the federal program I mentioned earlier. The ACDBE, which is for airport concession firms. That is also a federal program. And our newest program is VBE, or Veteran-Owned Business Enterprises. The basic eligibility requirements are fairly similar for all these programs. We have a separate workshop just to talk about certification because there are a lot of specifics involved with it. But generally, the business must be owned and operated by individuals who are either minorities, women, certain veterans, individuals with disabilities, at least 51% or more owned by those individuals in order to be eligible. Under the BEPD program, businesses must be at least 51% owned and controlled by individuals with disability. And as I mentioned before, the City of Chicago accepts Cook County MBE and WBE certification, but those are the only certifications we accept for MBE and WBE. Otherwise, you have to be certified by the city. I'm going to briefly discuss economic disclosure statements. So this is a requirement for bidding on city projects. So EDSs, or economic disclosure statements, address the disclosure of ownership, as the name implies. We need to know who owns your company. So according to our rules, any legal entity, individual or entity that owns 7.5% or more of the firm has to fill out an EDS. And those are filed online. There's instructions in the bid package, so you'll understand how to do it. But we need to know who is involved in your organization. So now I'm going to get into the types of procurement that we commonly use at the city. I'm just going to give a general overview of all of these, starting with small orders, competitive bids, which are most common, requests for proposals, requests for qualifications, and job order contracts. Small orders are used for the procurement of goods or services that are less than $100,000. There's no formal bid specification or public advertisement required. Quotes can be solicited by telephone, fax, or written quotation and posted on the DPS's website. City of Chicago MBE and WBE vendors are solicited first, and compliance is required for MBE and WBE goals for any small order over $10,000. Competitive bids. This is what is our most commonly used competitive procurement method, and you'll probably see most often. This is for a formal bid solicitation for anything equal to or over $100,000. These are all advertised. They'll be in the Sun-Times. They're advertised daily in the classified section. We advertise them on our website as well. You can find out about them in the bid and bond room, which is right here in City Hall, room 103. Bids are typically advertised for 10 to 30 days. At least 10 days is required by law, so that is the shortest period we will ever advertise for. And occasionally there will be a deposit required for bids. If there is a required deposit, the bid package will tell you how much the deposit needs to be. It's usually a percentage of the estimated contract value. And it will tell you the form and manner that you have to submit your bid deposit. Competitive bids often include a pre-bid meeting. These are optional, but we encourage that any interested bidder attends these meetings. This is your opportunity to review the specification. There will typically be someone from the user department and procurement who will go over all the requirements for the package. So they'll address the specifications. Any concerns that vendors have about the specifications can be raised there through a Q&A period. And it can result in addendum or clarification being issued. So I mentioned addendum earlier is the written way that we notify all interested bidders that we've made a change to our specification. So those can result from the pre-bid meeting. So it's valuable to attend so that you're able to raise questions. Pre-bids can include a site inspection of the work location at the pre-bid meeting. So for example, if you're in the construction industry and you're bidding on a project to build something, we'll often have you go to the job site so you can see where it is that you're going to be building. If there's not a pre-bid meeting, we strongly encourage all bidders to carefully review the specification and the entire bid package during the period called for in the bid package, because there will be a time defined of when you are allowed to submit questions to DPS. And you need to submit any questions you have within that time period so that we have time to respond and answer questions before the bids are due. So it's very important to keep those times in mind. line for if you have any questions when you're reviewing it. Because it's not enough when you submit a bid, if it's rejected, to say, oh, I didn't realize that, or I made a mistake, or I didn't understand this, because at that point it's too late. So some more on competitive bids. It's very important to complete all of the bid documents. So you have to fill in all the required information. You have to sign and execute and have notarized any place that needs to be notarized. If you submit your bid documents and they're not properly completed, you run the risk that your bid can be rejected. And we don't want to have to reject bids for mistakes. So it's really important to carefully review the bid documents and complete them properly. On that same note, if there is a bid deposit, make sure that you're submitting it in the proper form. Cash is not accepted for bid deposits. Bid deposits are usually about 5% of the bid, and they're normally refundable. In some instances, they may not be, but we will let you know that ahead of time. The bid fee is non-refundable. Oh, excuse me. It may be required for some bid submittals, but again, all this information will be available in the bid package, so you'll know ahead of time if there are any fees or deposits required. One of the most important things, though, I can tell you about submitting bid is you need to submit it on time. You cannot submit it 1 minute late. It has to be on time for us to consider your bid. So make sure you're checking when bids are due and you get them in. So for example, if it's due on Monday at 11 a.m., you have to have it in by 11 a.m., not 11:01 or 11:02. Bid openings occur Monday through Friday, except major holidays, at 11 a.m. in City Hall in the Bid and Bond Room 103. They're opened and read aloud. All the bids are tabulated, and then the tabulations and the bid documents are reviewed for accuracy and completeness. So that's where we check for responsiveness. Bid tabs can typically be viewed online on DPS's website about 24 hours after bid openings. That's not a guarantee, but we typically try to get them up there within that time period. So you'll be able to see what everyone else bid on the project. For the award process, the determination first is made about bidders' responsiveness, so we make sure that they're actually meeting all of our requirements and responsibility, that they're capable of performing. Then a recommendation of award is made. Acceptable bids are packaged, and then the bid and contract documents are routed through the signature and approval process. Because we are stewards of taxpayer funds, there are many different levels of approval that are required before we can award a contract. So various different departments in the city have to sign off on it. After we get through the signature and approval process, there's also, there may be performance and payment bonds that are required under the contract. So the contractor will be required to submit those. They'll be required to submit proof of insurance. And if the funding agency who has granted us funds to pay for the contract requires it, we might have to contact that agency for concurrence before we can officially award a contract. And then ultimately, the last step is the contract's awarded to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder meeting the city's specifications. Request for proposals. So this is the next one I'm going to talk about. This is a method to solicit proposals, as the name implies, to implement a new project, typically requiring professional services. It's used when the city doesn't have in-house technical experts or resources to implement the certain project or services that we need. The RFP is going to define the project objectives and scope of services, but it doesn't necessarily detail every aspect of implementing the project, because typically we will say we want you to submit a proposal telling us how you're going to achieve what we need. It requires a detailed evaluation of the proposals by an evaluation committee. So this is a committee that is made up of different individuals throughout different departments in the city of Chicago, and occasionally different sister agencies in the city of Chicago, who are able to assist and make informed decisions based on the evaluation criteria that are stated in the RFP. So we'll say in the RFP that we are going to evaluate proposals, for example, on how many years you've been in business, who are your staff, how many years have your staff been working in the industry. So these are just types of criteria that we'll use. And the evaluation criteria will then look at your proposals based on those criteria and they'll score them. So award is going to be made not based on the lowest price like competitive bids, but to the highest ranked and rated respondents. So an example of this is an RFP for safety management system consultants, where we need them to design, develop, and support a new system for us for safety management. this could be a very unique system that the city needs, where just pulling some sort of prepackaged software off the shelf isn't necessarily going to meet our needs. So we need to make sure that we have the opportunity to evaluate all proposals and see what the solutions are that it can offer, see who the staff is who's going to be working with us, so that we're awarding the contract to whoever's going to give the best value to the city. Request for qualifications is the next type I'll discuss. So this is used to solicit qualifications for companies who possess a high degree of technical expertise and knowledge in specific disciplines. So you'll typically see these for architectural and engineering services, or A&E services. The city will pre-qualify companies to build a vendor pool to respond to future task orders. So companies will respond, we will rank, and we'll see who the highest ranked companies are based on their qualifications. And then those companies will be awarded a master agreement. And then we'll issue task orders under that master agreement, so that they'll each be doing little individual portions of work. So maybe all the work isn't up front told in the RFQ. You'll find out about the specifics in your task order. The RFQ will generally tell you the types of work you'll be performing. And again, like I said, this is most commonly used for A&E, for design contracts and certain categories of consulting. One other note for these, there's no cost proposal with RFQs. It's purely based on your qualifications. Fees are negotiated later. So the last type of procurement method I'm going to talk about is job order contracts, or JOC. JOC is a firm fixed price, competitively bid, indefinite quantity contract that's specifically designed for each department's construction program. So this is typically used to accomplish small to medium-sized, multi-traded, either reconstruction, rehab, or new construction projects. By firm fixed price, we mean that it's based off of a set of adjustment factors to the fixed prices that are published in the Construction Task Catalog, which is a proprietary book of pre-priced work. And by adjustment factors, we mean that you will take a look at the pre-priced work, the quantity, and then you will add on your overhead and markup and any of those other costs, and then that will be the price that you give the city. The contracts are fixed term, and there's a guaranteed minimum and maximum dollar value, but no projects are identified at the time of bid. Once a master umbrella contract's awarded, job orders are then issued to the contractors for these different individual projects up to the maximum contract value. Move forward on slides. But the value of the job contract, it's going to depend on the departmental needs and budget. So this varies from department to department. Now I'm going to shift gears and talk about contract monitoring and compliance. So I mentioned earlier that there are MBE and WBEs, or DBE goals, depending on the funding for most of our contracts. So our compliance department monitors the actual utilization of MBE, WBE, and DBEs on the contract that have been identified in the compliance plan. We also ensure compliance with the Chicago Residency Ordinance requirements and the Equal Opportunity Ordinance. So Section 292-330 of the Chicago Municipal Code requires that 50% of the total work hours must be performed by actual city residents on construction contracts that have an estimated value of over $100,000 and are funded by the City of Chicago. There's also a requirement that 7.5% of the total work hours have to be performed by project area residents for construction contracts that have an estimated value at over $100,000. So we'll identify ahead of time what the project area is on these contracts. So when you see a construction contract that's city funded, there will be a map included, and we will identify these are the project areas, and then it's your responsibility as a bidder and a contractor to ensure that 7.5% or more is performed by project area residents, and that 50% or more are performed by city residents. How do you achieve compliance? So there's a number of different ways to achieve compliance in MBE, WBE, and DBE goals. The prime can be an MBE, WBE, or a DBE. You can joint venture between a established firm and an MBE, WBE, or a DBE. You can subcontract a portion of the work to one or more MBE, WBEs, or DBEs, or you can purchase materials that are used in the performance of the contract by one or more MBE, WBEs, or DBEs. If you take a look at our bid documents, when you're bidding, our special conditions for the MBE, WBE program explain that when you purchase materials, it doesn't count the same as if you are directly performing work as an MBE, WBE, or subcontracting work, but you can achieve the goals through that method. There are a number of reporting requirements, and excuse the typo there, that are associated with complying with MBE and WBE and DBE goals. Prime contractors have to submit monthly subcontractor payment certification forms. So those help us know that you're actually paying your subcontractors who you've committed to provide work to on your compliance plan. You also have to submit certified payrolls and waivers of lien. It's very important for us to know that if you've committed to offering a certain portion of the work to MBEs and WBEs, that you're actually providing that work and that you're actually paying them. So a lot of information that I've gone over is available on our website. There's also a lot of other helpful information that you might want to become familiar with if you're interested in doing business with the city. On there, you can find all of our awarded contracts and modifications. So if you're interested in becoming familiar with what our contracts look like, you can go on and you can search by different department, different contract type, and you can kind of take a look at what our contracts look like. You can take a look at all of our payments that have been made to different city contractors. All of the bid tabs, so when we do our bid opening, those are posted on our website, so you can see what other companies in the area are bidding on projects. Our weekly bid opportunities are on our website, so if you check our website, you can see what are the opportunities to actually bid on with the city. New certification initiative information is on there, so you can find out information on how to become certified, training on certification, different bid incentives and programs you can participate in. They're all available on our website. There's also a searchable directory of MBEs and WBEs, so you can go on and find firms that are able to perform work to meet the MBE and WBE goals. And our website is listed here. It's thecityofchicago.org/procurement. We also have a social media presence, which we encourage you to check out for information on DPS and opportunities to do business with the city. We have a YouTube page. We mentioned before this session started that this is live recorded on YouTube, and we have a YouTube channel which you can always go in and check any of our workshops if you've missed them in person. We have a Twitter account as well as a Facebook page, so you can find out information about our bid advertisements, addenda, workshops, events, policies and procedures, and a number of other things that affect the vendor community. So we encourage you to check that out. And I know I went through this material very quickly, but I thank you for attending and listening patiently. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any.